Hi, everyone. So this week's portion is the portion of Vayetze, and it came to my attention that our weekly newsletter, there was a little bit of a mistake there on the title. It said Kitetse, a little mix up, so it is Vayetze. The newsletter is correct, just the title, there was a mistake. Anyway, so in this week's portion, something very interesting. Most people use their brains in different ways. And what does that mean? Some say I use my brain and my intellect for physical things, for physical challenges, for my business, for how to program my computer, all those kinds of things. But when it comes to spirituality and the love of my family and my meditations and my prayers, those things can't be rationalized. So I don't use my logic for that. And then there are others who would take a different approach. They say, actually, it's the opposite. The spiritual side of my life is where I need the most guidance and where I need to use my brain the most because it's so deep and there's so much to learn. And so I let myself, on the day-to-day basis of the physical business things, I let myself run an automatic pilot. And the spiritual side, the family, the love, all those things, that's where I put my brain in. And so who's right and who's wrong? And so according to this fascinating explanation that I found, and it's really connected to Jacob's sleeping habits, because in this portion, it talks about Jacob sleeping and the dream that he had. And so it says, we read while Jacob was journeying from Israel, from the Holy Land to Haran, which was out of Canaan, out of Israel, it says he found a place and called Mount Moriah, which we know is the Temple Mount. And it says he slept there because the sun went down, and he laid down in that place. So, there's a lot of times the Torah emphasizes things twice, and we know that there's no word that's wasted in the Torah. So the question is, why does it say he laid down in that place and he slept there? It's the same thing. Why does it have to be said twice? So this is the explanation. It says that in the place that he lay down, it says for the 14 years that he was hidden in the house of Evel, the name is Evel, he didn't lie down. He didn't sleep. But in that place, he lay down. All the 20 years that he was in Lavan's house, working for Rachel and Leah, and all those years, he never lay down. But in this place, he lay down. And it says that night, the night that Jacob spent at that holiest place on earth was probably the most intensely spiritual and special moment of his whole life. So for 14 years, before that, he was secluded by himself in his teacher's home, in his teacher's school. And his teacher's name was Evel, who was Noah's great-great-grandson. And he devoted his every moment to studying spirituality, to pursuing wisdom. He didn't sleep. And then for the following 20 years after that, he worked for Lavan, and he didn't sleep. But during that one night, he slept. He lay down. So what does that mean? So if you think about it, a person lying down, his head is down, and the rest of his body is on the same plane, right? Your body and your head are on the same plane. And when we do that, we surrender basically the most important advantage that a human being has over every other living creature. And what's that? The brain. The brain, we surrender our brain. Sleeping is like 1/60th of death. We're not in control of our brain anymore. We're on the same plane. When a man is standing up, which again is the difference between animals and man, the brain is the one that is in charge of everything else. So a person who allows himself to be ruled just by his emotions or instincts and really doesn't use his brain, which is the most important feature that humanity has. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't feel. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have emotions. But there's a reason why we were given a brain. And a brain can be used for both sides. It can be used for the spiritual, and it can be used for the physical, and it should be used for both. It's not one or the other. So Jacob he didn't lie down for the 14 years, and he didn't lie down for the 20 years. But at that time, he lay down. So the rule is that really we should use both. But there's also a higher truth. And the truth goes beyond physicality and spirituality. The truth goes beyond intellect. Because the Creator is neither physical or spiritual. He created both realms, and He's present in both realms. So He gave us ways of connecting to His higher truth in both ways. Prayer, for example, is a spiritual connection, while giving charity is a physical connection. And God provided us, the Creator provided us with a guide, our mind, with which we can navigate both areas of our life. But we also need to be connected to a higher truth, which goes beyond physical, beyond even spiritual. But it's only because of the connection that we can actually be in both places and use both sides, incorporate them in our lives. That's why Jacob had to spend a night on Mount Moriah, which is the site of the Holy Temple, and that's where the place of the Creator's deepest self-revelation to man is, actually. And only that encounter with Mount Moriah was actually the bridge between Ever's years and Lavan's years. What does this mean? So if you think about it, 14 years Jacob spent in Ever's house of teaching. And what was he doing in those 14 years? He was studying spirituality. He was studying the wisdom of the Creator. Then he lay down, and then he worked 20 years physically for Lavan. So we have the spiritual and the physical, and this night was the bridge between the spiritual and the physical. On Mount Moriah, there are no rules and there's no tools. You know, there's a place in Israel that we go to, and it's called the Cave of Machpelah, where the matriarchs and patriarchs are buried, where the entrance to the Garden of Eden is. And you feel there that there's no rules, there's no tools, there's just you and your connection to the Creator, you and your connection to a higher power. But what do we get in this portion? We get the ability to balance our spiritual and physical lives, to actually know that we have a brain as a human being, to use it for both, to not be, as Eliyahu was speaking this week about the experiences that we went through before we started Vital, you know, not to be in a cult or in a spiritual cult or even kidnapped in our brain by spiritual rules. And people go around every day being kidnapped by rules. What does that mean? Not that we're against religion, of course not. We practice everything. But you need to use your brain. You need to, even in spirituality, know what's right and wrong for you. Where is your connection to the Creator? And that night where he lay down, for us, is sort of like a time out to understand that we have a choice and that we can do both. It says in our statement on Vital Transformation in the beginning on our website, it says that we believe in balancing both worlds. You can't have spiritual without physical, and you can't have physical without spiritual. Jacob gave us the tool to balance both of those things. So it's between spirituality and physicality. And you know, this week being Thanksgiving, there's so many things we can be thankful for. And I know if you listen to Eliyahu's Spiritual Friday, to take time to write what you have in your life and appreciate it. Appreciate also the people who are around you. appreciate the people who help you get spiritually to a higher level and who help you get physically to a higher level. It's so important to appreciate the people who help you get more and more things in your life physically, not just spiritually. Don't be ashamed of the physical, because the more you want physical, the more you want spiritual. That's why when we always talk about desire, people think that being spiritual is not having desire. No. Have desire. Have desire for everything, all the spirituality and all the physicality. Then you can manifest big things in your life. This week, with volunteers and with all the donations of a lot of people, we were able to pack 76 boxes to soldiers, Jewish American soldiers in Afghanistan, Kuwait, Iraq, and Qatar, who don't have kosher food. Kosher food is physical. But while we were packing and while we were shipping and while I was talking to the chaplain, it's about the spiritual. It's about what energy we put into that food, into those packing, into the shipping. We can't have one without the other. Jacob helped us on that time of laying down to understand that we can and we should balance both. We have a brain, and that really is our advantage over every other creature that exists. And we can use our brain for both sides. Happy Thanksgiving. I appreciate all of you watching this video, all of you that support us at Vital Transformation, and we love you. Thank you.